You only need one M2 to grow a huge amount of food. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Golden Garden, the place where every plant lover, balcony gardener, weekend grower, and quiet dreamer with a single sunny window comes to breathe a little deeper. If you've ever stood in your tiny backyard, your narrow patio, or that one bright corner of your living room wondering, can I really grow enough food here? Then today's story is just for you. Because the truth is, you don't need a big yard, rows of raised beds, or a sprawling garden to feel the joy of abundance. All you need is 1 square meter, just a small patch of earth or even a deep container, and a little guidance from someone who has spent years coaxing life from the smallest spaces. And today I'm going to show you how that single meter can transform into a thriving source of food, beauty, and confidence. If you love plants, if you crave simple practical tips, and if you want to turn your tiny garden into something extraordinary, make sure you subscribe to Golden Garden so you never miss a moment of inspiration. Let's begin. Rethinking small spaces, why your 1M2 garden matters more than you think. When we talk about growing food, many people instantly imagine large backyards, long rows of vegetables, or wide-open fields. But you and I, we know a different reality. Most of us are tending small balconies, narrow side yards, cozy patios, or that one precious patch of soil beside the driveway. And yet those tiny spaces hold far more potential than most people ever realize. Imagine this, just 1 square meter, the size of a doormat, a coffee table, or a yoga mat, quietly producing over 100 portions of fresh food in a single year. It sounds unbelievable, but trust me, after years of nurturing little garden corners, I've seen it happen again and again. Small spaces force us to think smarter, observe more closely, and build a deeper relationship with every plant we place in the soil. And if you're someone who's always juggling time, space, or even confidence in your gardening skills, this is where the magic begins. Because a tiny garden doesn't limit you, it focuses you. It teaches you to see possibilities where others see restrictions. And today, I want to show you exactly how that small, humble meter can become the most powerful part of your growing journey. Let's explore it together. The mindset shift. Counting portions instead of plants now. As we step deeper into this journey, I want to share a shift in thinking that completely transformed the way I plan my tiny garden spaces. It's simple, but once you understand it, everything becomes clearer, easier, and far more intentional. Instead of counting plants, start counting portions. Most gardeners, especially those just starting out with small spaces, tend to think in terms of how many seedlings they can squeeze into a bed. But when you focus only on plant numbers, you often end up with too much of something you don't actually eat, or too little of the vegetables you love most. And I know many of you watching, people who care deeply about fresh food, who value every leaf and root you grow, have felt that frustration. So let's imagine a single kale plant. Over its life, it can give you roughly 12 portions. That means with just 4 plants, you can enjoy kale twice a week for half a year. Beetroot. When you plant a cluster, you're really planting a portion. And suddenly your garden stops being guesswork and becomes a personalized food system designed around your habits, your meals, and the way you actually live. It's a gentle shift, but a powerful one. And it's the first real step toward making your little 1M garden feel abundant, balanced, and entirely your own. Let's keep going. The self-sufficiency formula, a simple way to plan what you truly need. As we move forward, let's take that portion-based mindset and turn it into something practical, something you can actually use to shape your garden with confidence. I call it a simple self-sufficiency formula, and it's designed for people just like you, gardeners who care about using their space wisely, who want real results, and who don't have time for complicated systems. Here's how it works. First, you define what a portion means for you. Not for a cookbook, not for a magazine, just you and your household. Maybe 3 beetroots make a meal. Maybe 1 handful of chard is enough for a stir-fry. Then think about how many portions you eat in a month or a year. This alone already brings clarity because suddenly you're connecting your garden directly to your daily life. Next, pair that with the average yield per square meter for each crop. When you see those numbers beside your own eating habits, something clicks. You'll know how many plants you need, not because someone told you, but because the math fits your lifestyle. This formula removes the stress, the guessing, and the constant feeling of too much of this, not enough of that. It becomes a guiding light, helping your little garden feel purposeful, seasonal, and beautifully aligned with the way you eat and live. And once you have this clarity, the real magic of your 1 square meter space begins to unfold. Let's keep discovering it together. Keeping roots alive, the secret to a thriving, always productive garden. Now that your planning has more intention behind it, let's talk about one of the most overlooked secrets in small space gardening: keeping living roots in the soil for as long as possible. This simple idea can completely reshape the health and productivity of your 1 meter garden, especially for those of you who garden in tight corners, raised boxes, or little backyard beds where every inch matters. Living roots act like anchors for your soil. Even the smallest plants send signals downward, feeding microbes, holding moisture, and building a living ecosystem beneath the surface. And when your soil is alive, your plants respond with energy, resilience, and bigger harvests. This is why embracing the seasons is so powerful. Think of your little garden as a year-round partner. In spring, you might grow fast crops like radishes. Summer brings warmth-loving vegetables. As autumn arrives, you switch to cool season greens. And winter? Even a small patch can host hardy herbs or slow-growing roots that quietly keep the soil active. When you garden this way, your space stops feeling empty between crops. Instead, it becomes a continuous cycle of growth, one that rewards you far more than you might expect from such a small footprint. And once you learn to work with the seasons rather than wait for them, your tiny square meter becomes a source of food almost all year long. Let's take this idea even further: succession planting. Turning 1 square meter into a year-round food factory now that your soil is alive and working with you. Let's talk about the technique that truly unlocks the full power of tiny spaces. Succession planting. This is where your 1 square meter garden stops being a single-season plot and becomes a dynamic, continuous food source, almost like a little conveyor belt of harvests right outside your door. Think of it this way: as soon as one crop finishes, another one steps in. Nothing sits empty, nothing goes to waste. A bed that begins with crisp spring radishes can follow with summer potatoes, slide smoothly into autumn Chinese cabbage, and finally settle into winter garlic, all in the same small square. And when you add up the yields from these seasonal layers, the numbers are astonishing. This is especially powerful for those of you tending balconies, narrow yards, or compact patio gardens. Instead of trying to grow everything at once, you let the seasons guide you. Each plant takes its turn, each crop squeezes the most from the time it's given, and your garden becomes a living rhythm you learn to dance with. And the beauty is, once you get into the habit of swapping one crop out for the next, your tiny space transforms into something that feels bigger, fuller, and far more generous than its size would ever suggest. Now, let's explore what happens when all that abundance starts adding up. Composting made simple, feeding your garden without overthinking it. As your little garden becomes more productive, it's natural to wonder how you'll keep the soil nourished. Many new gardeners, especially those working with small spaces, worry that they need to replace everything they harvest with an equal amount of compost. But here's the comforting truth: plants are mostly water and carbon pulled from the air, not something you must constantly dig back into the ground. In reality, your 1 square meter garden only needs a gentle, steady approach. A thin layer of compost, about 2 centimeters a year, is often enough to keep your soil rich and your plants thriving. It's simple, manageable, and perfect for gardeners like you who value efficiency just as much as abundance. And if you ever find yourself short on compost, you can still give your plants the boost they need. A handful of compost in each planting hole or a splash of homemade comfrey tea can carry them beautifully through the season. What matters most is consistency, not quantity. Small gardens don't need mountains of materials, they need thoughtful care. And when you feed your soil just a little each year, it rewards you with vitality that shows in every leaf, root, and fruit you harvest. With the soil nourished and your system running smoothly, the next step is to make sure every crop you grow truly belongs in your kitchen. Let's continue. Grow what you love, let your garden match your taste. Now that your soil is nourished and your garden is working in harmony with the seasons, it's time to bring the heart back into the process, choosing what you truly love to eat. This might sound simple, but it's one of the most important steps, especially for gardeners who are short on space and want every harvest to feel meaningful. Growing food is not just about yields or efficiency, it's about joy, comfort, and connection. Maybe you adore the sweetness of roasted beetroot or the crunch of fresh cabbage. Maybe tomatoes remind you of your childhood garden, or a bunch of chard brings life to your favorite soup. Whatever it is, your tiny 1 minute space should reflect foods that excite you, nourish you, and fit naturally into your meals. Because the truth is, a huge harvest means very little if it doesn't end up on your plate. I've met many gardeners who grow impressive amounts of vegetables they rarely use simply because they thought they should. But when you focus on the crops you genuinely enjoy, your garden becomes a partner in your daily life, not just a project. So take a moment to reflect on what you and your family actually crave. Let those foods guide your choices. When your garden grows with your taste in mind, everything becomes easier, more fulfilling, and far more delicious. And once you've chosen your favorites, we can talk about the crops that give you the biggest return on your precious space. Let's move on. High-yield heroes, the best crops for getting the most from your 1 square meter. Now that you've aligned your garden with the foods you truly love, let's shine a light on the crops that give you the biggest reward for the space they take. These are the powerhouses, the plants that turn a tiny garden into a surprisingly abundant source of fresh meals. And if you're someone gardening on a balcony, in a narrow yard, or in a compact bed behind your home, these crops will become your closest companions on the journey toward real productivity. Tomatoes and cucumbers often lead the way, offering up to 12 kilograms per square meter when grown with proper support. Their vertical nature makes them perfect for small spaces. You simply guide them upward, freeing the soil below for companions. Onions, with their quiet, steadfast growth, can give you around 10 kilograms, and you can enjoy their green tops along the way. Then there are the root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, and beetroot, each capable of offering 6 to 8 kilograms per meter, while also giving you edible greens that many gardeners overlook. Potatoes deliver generous harvests too, often 8 kilograms or more, and are wonderfully satisfying for gardeners who love seeing big results from a single planting. Leafy crops like cabbage, chard, and Chinese cabbage bring 6 to 8 kilograms of crisp, nourishing food while fitting smoothly into succession plans throughout the year. What makes this list powerful is not just the numbers, it's the flexibility. You can build a garden based on your favorite flavors, your climate, and your schedule. Choose a few long-season staples, mix in some fast growers, and suddenly your tiny 1 square meter becomes a balanced ecosystem that feeds you again and again. And now that you know which crops give the most in return, it's time to explore how to arrange them so every inch of your space works beautifully for you. Let's keep going. Designing your 1 square meter garden, a simple blueprint to make every inch count. Now that you know which crops offer the greatest rewards, let's talk about how to arrange them so your tiny space works harder and smarter than ever before. Designing a 1 square meter garden is like creating a miniature ecosystem, one where every layer, every corner, and every moment in the season plays a role. And for those of you gardening in tight patios, narrow side yards, or compact raised beds, this is where your creativity truly comes alive. Begin by choosing your anchor crops, the steady, reliable plants that will occupy your garden the longest. These might be tomatoes climbing up a trellis or a sturdy cabbage holding the center of the bed. Once these anchors are set, you can fill the surrounding spaces with faster-growing companions like lettuce, radishes, or herbs. They'll flourish in the early weeks, long before the larger plants need more room. Think vertically as well as horizontally. A simple string trellis or bamboo frame creates an upper layer for cucumbers or tomatoes, while the soil beneath supports leafy greens or root vegetables. This tiered approach turns one small square into a multi-level garden bursting with possibility. And remember, your plan doesn't need to be perfect. It simply needs to match your style, your climate, and the foods you love. When your layout feels intentional and balanced, your 1 square meter becomes not just a garden, but a thoughtful, living design that feeds you season after season. Now, with your space fully optimized, let's talk about the deeper magic that a tiny garden can bring into your life. The bigger impact, how a tiny garden can transform your life. With your 1 square meter carefully planned and beautifully alive, it's time to step back and appreciate something deeper, something many gardeners only realize after they've lived with their little patch for a while. A tiny garden does more than feed you. It changes the rhythm of your days, the way you breathe, and the way you see the world around you. For those of you tending plants in small spaces, on balconies, beside kitchen doors, or in compact backyard corners, your garden becomes a sanctuary. It's a moment of calm after a busy day, a quiet ritual that helps you reconnect with yourself. Every new leaf, every tiny sprout, every harvest becomes a reminder that growth doesn't require grand spaces or perfect conditions. It just needs care, patience, and intention. You begin to notice how a simple task, watering, pruning, checking on the soil, grounds you. How stepping outside for a handful of herbs or a quick harvest brings a spark of confidence and pride. Even in the smallest spaces, gardening gives you something steady to hold on to, something real and nourishing. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. Your tiny garden shows you that abundance isn't measured in acres, but in consistency, in curiosity, in the small decisions you make every day. That little square meter becomes a quiet teacher, reminding you that big changes often start in the smallest places. Now that we've explored its impact, it's time to bring everything together and prepare for a gentle, inspiring close. Bringing it all together, small space, big possibilities. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey through this tiny yet extraordinary 1 square meter garden, a space that proves abundance has nothing to do with size and everything to do with intention. When you look back at everything we've explored together, from portion-based planning to year-round living routes, from high-yield crops to the emotional comfort your garden brings, one message rises above all the rest. You already have enough space to begin. Whether you're tending a balcony box, a narrow patio bed, a sunny corner by your kitchen door, or even a single container on a quiet windowsill, your garden has the potential to nourish you far beyond what you expect. It can give you food, yes, but also a sense of purpose, a daily moment of peace, a reminder that growth happens slowly, quietly, and beautifully. So as you step back into your day, I hope you carry with you a spark of excitement, a belief that your little piece of earth, no matter how small, can become something vibrant and meaningful. Your journey toward abundance doesn't need acres. It needs only intention, curiosity, and a willingness to begin with what you have. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What does your small garden look like? What do you dream of growing in your own 1 square meter? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. I truly enjoy reading your stories. If today's video inspired you or helped you imagine new possibilities, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Golden Garden, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next moment of inspiration. Your garden is waiting. Let's grow together.